3 Palestinians shot dead in Jenin as West Bank violence continues. 3 Palestinians were killed in Jenin early on Thursday as violence showed no sign of abating in the occupied West Bank. They were shot dead by Israeli forces at dawn, the Palestinian Health Ministry said. Local media reported that soldiers shot at ambulances taking the wounded to hospital. Read more: Israeli soldiers arrested over Bethlehem attack as West Bank tension simmers. Jenin has suffered almost daily raids by Israeli forces, with the military saying the operations are focused on members of militant groups responsible for attacks in Israel that have killed 19 this year. The attacks include a twin bombing in Jerusalem last month. Last week, Israeli forces shot dead 2 Palestinians, including a militant leader, in a Jenin raid that caused gun battles. Figures from the WAFA news agency show 216 Palestinians have been killed so far this year, including 164 in the West Bank. That marks the deadliest year of the conflict since 2005. The Israeli military has said most of the dead are militants, but stone-throwing youths and others not involved in confrontations have also been killed. The UN has said it fears the conflict will reach boiling point as violence continues. On Wednesday, a man was killed by Israeli forces east of Ramallah, and Palestinian media reported raids in Nabi Saleh and Kafr Ain, where 2 brothers were shot dead last week. Violence was also reported in Nablus, which was locked down for several weeks in October. Israel closed checkpoints into the city and launched regular raids against the Lion's Den group, responsible for some attacks in Israel this year, in what residents said was collective punishment against those living in the city. On Tuesday, broadcaster Al Jazeera filed a suit with the International Criminal Court into the death of Shireen Abu Akleh, who was shot during an army raid in Jenin in May. Israel initially sought to blame Palestinians for her death but later admitted she was probably shot by one of its soldiers. Netanyahu a step closer to right-wing government. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister-elect Benjamin Netanyahu has secured a majority in parliament after striking a coalition deal with the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, increasing fears of further violence. We have completed another step towards the formation of a right-wing government that will act to serve all of Israel's citizens, he said on Thursday. While an official coalition agreement has not yet been signed, it would give Mr Netanyahu control of 64 of the Knesset's 120 seats, a majority he repeatedly failed to reach in previous elections. Itamar Ben-Gvir, who will take control of Israel's police and public security, lives in a West Bank settlement. He was previously barred from the Knesset for inciting racism and has repeated calls for the death penalty for those responsible for recent attacks on Israelis. Under the coalition agreement, control of the Interior and Health Ministries will go to Aryeh Deri of the Shas party. He will be finance minister for the second half of the government's term. The Knesset will have to pass legislation enabling Mr Deri, who is jailed for bribery and given a suspended sentence for tax offences, to return to office. Mr Netanyahu is also facing a trial over corruption charges. Israel's basic law, which acts in place of a constitution, states that ministers who have been sentenced to prison in the previous 7 years cannot take up a role in government.